All right, welcome to the on-air Jenkins Essentials Open Planning meeting. I apologize for my lack of video and the noise. Unfortunately, there's no better place for me to do a meeting right now. So, Baptiste, I'm going to ask you to drive this a little bit, and I'll pipe in.
Yes. So welcome everybody. So I'm gonna just share my screen right away so that we have a place to look at. By the way, welcome Mandy. So she's showing up as Amanda on the left. She's going to work with us and as a backend service developer. And so right away switching to what I was working on, and I will give the mic to Mandy slightly later on, I think. So last week I was mostly at the Eclipse conference where I gave a talk about Essentials. So I hope the recording will be posted soon because I think it's kind of a product vision higher level talk, not really technical. So it kind of summarizes the intent of the project and so on. So it would be valuable for people to wanting to discover what that project is about.
Once that video is posted, I think it would be great. I can do it or you can do it, but to write a blog post with an update on our status for
Yeah,
Jenkins
sure.
IO.
So, and I actually pinged through Twitter yesterday the EclipseCon Foundation and Eclipse Foundation and so on. For now, no answer yet. I hope it will be posted soon so that I can then indeed file something, a blog entry, and reference it from there. Right. So what I've switched to since mostly, and also trying to help Amanda. Who I should call Mandy, on the project is the AWS support. So it's kind of the sibling issue of the Docker cloud flavor we support since roughly 2 weeks. So now we are trying to see how we are going to set up a cluster agents right away from AWS. So the status about that is that it's just getting started. For tomorrow morning, I'm going to have a work with someone who knows ECS much more than me so that we optimize the timing and see if we're able to spawn agents from there and see then what are the possible caveats. Basically, we were just discussing that earlier with Tyler. There are likely two, three, maybe four possibilities, which would be so the legacy original EC2 plugin, then ECS, which I thought might be slightly better for the cluster aspect and the I think out of the box auto scaling and those kind of things, providing Docker containers. I never tried it, but I suspect it should be providing provisioning agents quicker than provisioning a full-blown VM on EC2. And so as Tyler was saying, there's also EKS solution, which I think for now is probably too much. So yeah, that's bottom line. Tomorrow we're trying ECS and see how it behaves. Then even if I separated it from that ticket, we are going to very soon, just once it's done, to look at auto-configuring also when it's using the AWS flavor of Essentials, auto-configuring to use the external artifact storage to store things in S3, as was developed some now weeks ago by the architecture team. So Oleg, Jesse, and Carlos. And I guess that's it for me for the last week and what's
Just for
upcoming.
some background for Mandy and for anybody else that watches the video, one of the reasons that we're looking at doing this work on AWS, well, there's two reasons for the work on AWS. One is we want to take advantage of the stuff that Jesse and the rest of them have built, but we also want to configure Jenkins out of the box a bit more opinionated, and that includes disabling all executors on the master instance, which means we have to provide some means of doing work on the Jenkins instance. So we have to configure something to provision agents either as containers or VMs. And that's not something that Jenkins has really done out of the box before. So this is a little bit uncharted territory as far as starting up a Jenkins with, from the very, very beginning with 0 masters and automatically having some other agent provider configured. So I think it's going to be cool work, at least.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
thanks. And Jesse,
yeah, I mean, there's a system built into Jenkins core that allows you to define a cloud, which is sort of, at this point, I would consider it kind of the legacy support for actual clouds. But basically it says, if you're, please go ahead and start allocating some new agents out of some pool that you have available. I think in the longer term, we'd like to take advantage of stuff that Nicola, for example, is experimenting with, whereby we can directly make a connection to a fresh cloud machine using whatever service we have available in the course of a build without it having to go through the Jenkins queue. But that's a little further out.
Right. So all the plugins that Batiste is, or the services and the plugins that are supporting those services that Batiste are using that cloud API, correct?
Exactly. So I'm using for the Docker Cloud what we call Flavor, the Docker plugin, which basically indeed implements the Cloud API for Docker. And I'm using kind of the same for ECS. And there's another plugin called EC2 plugin, which is doing exactly the same for provisioning from EC2. And so, yes. And so JC, just maybe for others and so for myself, I think the main issue, as I understand what you were saying about the Cloud API, for instance, is that it's necessarily because of the fact it's going through the queue and then waits for it when it goes too fast and so on, some kind of latency, which we can really reduce, to 0 before some agent starts being provisioned, right? That would be kind of the original design issues with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the cloud API was sort of a transitional system that sort of took the existing model of static agents and tried to make it work with an elastic system. But basically, it responds to increasing pressure by allocating more agents, and then after a while, the cloud implementation can drop some of them. But I mean, what we really want to be moving towards is that, there's no general pool of agents attached to Jenkins floating there. We want a particular build to go and, as part of the build process, attach to a fresh machine, do whatever build steps it needs to do, and then throw out that machine the moment that build completes, or even in the case of pipeline, the moment that node block completes, really.
Yeah. And I suppose have some ways of pre-provisioning things so that the build starts right away and so on.
Perhaps. I mean, there is some work done, I know, by Google to create a warmed up jar cache so that you can start up a remoting agent with all of the plugin jars that it needs already present statically in the image before it launches, so you don't have to transfer code in the normal case over the channel. So there's various optimizations you can make.
Okay.
I did want to mention one thing that's pretty critical for adding AWS agents, which is that you need to think about IAM roles or whatever your security scheme is. So in the case of the S3 plugin, we made a decision that we expect the master to have some sort of AWS credentials those could be implicitly via IAM, or we're also working on a GUI that would let you configure particular credentials in Jenkins if you prefer. But either way, what's important is that whatever agent computers you provision should not have any special permissions, at least S3.
Yeah. Okay.
They should be considered untrusted.
Yeah, I remember the JEP about that. Yeah, so it was supposed to be pushed from the master so that it just have some temporary thing. I remember something like this to download and maybe not to upload or something and go through the master. Yeah, I remember something about that in the JEP about external artifact storage, right?
Yeah, so it's using pre-signed URLs. So the master is solely responsible. The master has the only keys to actually access S3, and the agent is just given a provisional lease to push a particular artifact or download a particular artifact.
Okay. Yeah, indeed, the IAM is going to be slightly more tricky than just using an access key and its password, as I already somehow discovered a bit earlier today. But anyway, so let's just go on. Enough speaking, already more than 10 minutes. Let's switch to others. So let's keep the better for the end, I guess. So let's switch to Tyler, and we'll switch to Mandy, I think, afterwards. So Tyler, what's the status today? If you want to hear your voice again with the noise behind.
So this pull request is killing me. The work that I've been doing is just getting the computed update manifest to the clients, and as far as I can tell at this point, this morning, everything looks correct from a system standpoint, but the smoke tests are still failing. Though I'm very happy, Baptiste, that you did the work to put those smoke tests into place. Well, it takes me forever to run those. It's actually quite helpful.
Okay.
Integration of client server and Jenkins running. So the pull request that's related to this computing update manifest, it's gotten way too long, but there's no way that I can tease this apart. And it includes some generation of ingest.json, and that's just sort of the computed list from an essentials.yaml of all of the versions of plugins that we would need and their dependencies. That's enough to get us moving right now. There's some hard-coded overrides for stuff that's in the incrementals repository, but we'll need to find at a later point some way to get the essentials.yaml and incrementals repository out, a little bit closer together to generate that ingest.yaml. But from that, the server is only giving the client what updates it needs. So what that means from a data flow standpoint is every time we create a new update level, and this is defined in the JEP 307, all of the dependencies are listed there. Every single artifact that's part of that update level is listed. But when the client contacts us, we're going to have the latest versions of software on that client. And then we do a signature comparison, and we only give the client what it needs. So we're not re-downloading the entire world every time we have an update level. So I'm reluctant to say that this works because the tests are still failing, but it looks like it's working, and I'm not sure why the tests are failing right now, which is why we've been sort of locked up on getting that production environment under evergreen.jenkins.io deployed. Because I need to land this first, and then deploy that.
At least you made a huge step, like 30 minutes ago or less, because now we can see on the logs that are archived in the CI that Jenkins does start. So now there's something wrong with the client handling, which is receiving non-JSON response from the update service, as it said, but we can see that Jenkins now starts when it wasn't before.
That's something I've got to figure out a better way to handle this. When we're returning a 304 not modified, either Express or Feathers is not allowing me to define the body. And I think it's just inserting its own body. So the client is requesting a content type of application JSON, and the server is saying, no, I'm going to give you an error message instead. And then the client just tries to parse that. So I reduced that to a warning because it's non-fatal, and it's something that does need to be fixed, but it's not preventing the client from behaving incorrectly. So yeah, that's the once that is done, then I'm on to deploying to evergreen.jenkins.io.
Yeah, let's table that for later. I had a question about that, but let's just do that later. So That's great. So yeah, I will have a look. And so I'm not sure, by the way, I can really help on that part, but seems like now Jenkins is starting. So great. Let's just keep that for the chat and later discussions. Let's now switch to Mandy, and I'm not forgetting anyone else. So as I was saying, keeping the better for the end. So Mandy, welcome and thanks. So we discussed a bit earlier that you were going to getting started on that ticket, which is about aligning the code about the JEP 308, making sure things are aligned with the spec. So how things are going for you, Mandy?
I'm digging my way through the code base right now, and I've already got a test written that is currently failing. So I am looking at fixing the code to make sure it actually returns the 413.
Great. And don't hesitate, by the way. I mean, we generally try to push PRs that are ready, but you can definitely also, in that very case, I guess, push, work in progress PR so that we can provide feedback and get you more, help, even more in a synchronous way sometimes. I mean, pushing things in a explicitly tagged label as such PR so that we can, provide what we think are failing and, you can use the yourself the GitHub comment feature to say, okay, it's failing at that line, and I understand why, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
All right, got it.
Great. And so as I was saying for others, I just told earlier, Mandy, that I think it would be easier, and anyway, that's kind of what we're trying to do in general, to just file a specific PR for only the first case about, making sure when we're setting too large data, it returns that HTTP something instead of just, making a big PR addressing everything with regard to aligning to the JEP. It would be making the review easier, and overall, anyway, I mean, it makes sense. It's not. Those things can be merged separately.
Yeah, don't make pull requests like me. Mine, somehow, every time I turn over a new rock, whenever I'm working on a pull request, there's more stuff that's sort of deeply interrelated. Because you'll find this on the back end, Mandy, that there's a lot of stuff that was kind of stubbed out originally, and unstubbing some of those things out once you get out of error telemetry becomes a little bit more involved than this small little ticket that it might look like. But that's kind of what I expect from a newish system anyways. There's lots of big stuff that needs to be built.
Yeah, indeed. So you have a template to put that line on each of your PR, right? This pull request got a bit bigger than I wanted it to, but anyway, kidding. So I think we are mostly...
It bothers me much more than it probably bothers anybody else. I hate big pull requests, and here I am trapped in one for a week or two.
I mean, I think that's a good thing. I think we're all aligned to the fact that we should keep PRs easier, smaller, because we all know that it makes reviews and everything orders of magnitude easier and quicker. But we also know that sometimes it's just impossible. So that's fine. I mean, so I think we are mostly done. Anyone has anything to add? I think
Jesse,
we don't have Raul. Yeah, we don't
have Raul. Jesse, I'm kind of curious. We had that issue with incrementals, the publisher last week that I recall fixing. Has incrementals started to get more broadly adopted across the plugin base?
It's being used a bit more from pipeline code. I also seen that it's being used some from the Java 10 hackathon, so that people can have I think Oleg was working on setting up Docker images using incremental builds of plugins so that we could have a ready to run image containing a complete snapshot of stuff that had various known fixes in it. So I have certain changes I need to make. The most important one is that I want to change the calculation of the integer at the front of the number.
Okay.
But that's I think that should be a fairly limited technical change. So I'll propose it as soon as I get a moment.
Cool. Anything else you need from us?
No, I would say probably the reverse. If there's, I mean, I don't have time to work full time on anything related to the, what do you call it? The ingest manifest or something.
Yeah.
But if I can advise or help out on how that could be formatted or how that could process inputs and tie into incrementals or some other technical stuff with Maven, etc., just reach out to me.
I honestly think I might be able, just given the model that I've got in this pull request right now, I'm just grabbing the update center as the latest source of truth, and I'm not actually caring about any versions. I can see a very clear path.
Sorry,
between
you're
and what? Was I breaking up?
Yeah,
The audio's gone to crap. Is that it?
we can hear you, or maybe lower the quality, or I don't know, so that it reduces depending with available needed. Anyway, I think, Tyler, you were saying that what you already put in the PR is already reflecting what you think should be done, something like this. A pretty big picture of what you think should be done, parsing the update center and so on. Anyway, let's just stop guessing. Yeah, so I think it's writing. So it's yeah. Okay. Exactly. So thanks everybody. I think we're done and we're in time. 5 minutes left. That's also awesome. So thank you everybody, and so see you next week same time. And if you need anything or you're interested to join the project, so I just remind that it's happening. Most discussions are happening here on Gitter, so associated to the repo. And that's it. Thank you, everybody, and see you later. Bye-bye.